My name is Scott Mclarty. I am the co-chair of the Media Committee, along with Starlene, who's the other co-chair, and for public purposes, we often call ourselves Media Coordinator. And this is the workshop on media. We'll be covering a bunch of things, but I should mention that there are two other workshops going on too. At 3:15, Starlene Rankin and here you go. And Craig Seaman will be holding workshops on some of the technical matters associated with media, including live streaming, video, social networking, and other related matters. So, you know, you're invited to come to those too. We want you to all get a kind of a broad knowledge of what's involved in doing media work for candidates, but also for state and local parties. One of the most important things for any candidate who's running for office, and really for any party too, is to have a media operation. If you don't have a public voice like that, then it's difficult to reach a lot of people. And if you don't have if you're not reaching people, if you're not reaching the public, you really don't exist. And you know, we have to face the fact that we're all in the business of public relations. So you want to set up a functioning media operation, and you want to develop a strong public presence. And what I recommend is that if you're a candidate, you get somebody to be your media director. I would recommend somebody who is just interested in doing media work, who's not handling treasury or any other stuff, but is able to develop a set of skills that's related to media. And I often recommend that candidates who are running for office in the same area, they can share a media director. For instance, if you've got a bunch of people running for city council or for state legislature, you know, one person can do the work for the media work for all of them, and you know, you save on personnel that way. I do that in Washington, D.C., the D.C. State of Green Party. For most of the candidates that we've had, I've also served as media director for them, as media contact, and that's worked out quite well. We've also done that. They've also done that with someone working as treasurer too, Philip Barlow, who's an actuarial and knows finances. He's worked as treasurer. So, you know, sharing that kind of work makes it a lot more efficient. On the other hand, if you are running for governor, if you're running for president or an office like that, I recommend that you have a separate media director that is not working for anybody else, who can just concentrate on that work for your campaign. I recommend that media directors compile lists of local reporters and editors, along with their phone numbers and fax numbers. Fax isn't used so much anymore, but certainly email addresses. It helps to develop a relationship. You know, you're going to be a media director for a candidate. You want reporters to know you. If they have a question about the party that you work for, the candidate that you work for, they come to you. And that can be very rewarding sometimes after you've done that for a while. If they want to know what's going on, they give you a call. I'll talk just a little bit about websites and social media. You want to set up a website and have your website address placed prominently in all party communications. I often tell people that the name of the Green Party of the United States is not the Green Party or the Green Party of the United States. It's greenpartygp.org. Just get used to saying that. Very often if I'm on the radio doing an interview, I try to make it a point to say the party's website at least twice, preferably 3 times. Sometimes if it's kind of a rushed interview, which often happens, I'll get it in there once. But you know, you want people to visit your campaign website, your party website, and get to know it. On the website, you want to have all your contact information, especially the phone number and email address for the media director, on the home page. You don't want reporters to have to search around. You know, if they have to search for more than about 25 seconds to find out a particular piece of information, they may just give up and go on to something else. You want to make it as easy as possible for reporters to do anything. Never assume that a reporter will know where to go or what to ask or anything like that. I recommend having a professional-looking headshot for a candidate, preferably taken by a professional or experienced photographer. Don't use a photo taken in your living room or, you know, in one of those little photo booths or anything like that. Get a nice headshot that a reporter visiting the site can lift off as, you know, in JPEG form, JPG. And in that format, they can just transfer it to their news article if they're writing a report about you or listing candidates with their pictures. Again, it's making it the easiest possible. If you put together a press packet for a particular event that you're handing out, it often helps to have a headshot of the candidate as well. A few other bits of advice about your campaign website. I've seen some really, really good candidates' websites, and I've seen some really awful ones. And the sign of a really awful campaign website is one in which the homepage lists the entire platform right there. That's pretty useless. If you want to lose people, you know, your 12-point platform to anybody else except hardcore Green Party members looks like a laundry list or a grocery list. It's just not particularly interesting. Instead, what I recommend is choosing, well, the magic number is 3. Some people choose 2 or 4, but the good number is 3 of the top issues, the most important things that you're addressing in your campaign, and put that on your homepage, and use those 3 major points to define you as a candidate, use it to differentiate yourself from your competition. Don't put, I believe in affordable housing. Anybody can say, I believe in affordable housing. Don't put, I believe in affordable health care or even universal health care, because anybody believes that. Be very, very specific. Tell people that you believe in a specific housing plan. Tell people that you believe in Medicare for all, not just universal health care. You say Medicare for all or single payer, that tells people exactly what you mean. You know, the truth of the matter is, if you ask any Democrat or Republican if they believe in universal health care, they'll say, oh, of course, everybody should have health care. That's not really a point of differentiation between you and everybody else. Okay. You can use your website to gather information and raise money. Use a donation button, a volunteer sign-up button, and an email list sign-up button. And these should be very, very prominent. Email sign-up is not the same as a volunteer sign-up, because a lot of people are just going to be interested in your campaign, but they're not really willing to volunteer. Although you hope somewhere down the line they'll experience a conversion and want to come over and join the campaign as a volunteer. But you want as many people as possible to know what your campaign is up to, what the candidate is doing, what events are going on that they can show up at. And it's also useful for get out the vote efforts as well. Does everybody know here what get out the vote, GOTV? Does everybody understand what that means? That's basically the various operations that you have that motivates people to come out and vote for you. And you know, with Democrats or Republicans, it's GOTV can include things like treating everybody at a nursing home to a pancake breakfast and then loading them up on the bus and bring them over to the polling site, and presumably they're going to vote for you. And that, by the way, that doesn't always happen. I've heard of counter examples where the candidate, this happened in D.C. to somebody I know, a Democrat was running in the primary election, brought everybody over to the polling station from this nursing home and they all voted for the other candidate. So you can't always count on that. But you know, you want to, the main thing is you want to motivate people to get out and vote, to get out and work the polls. Now, I'm kind of moving on to regular campaign business there, so let's get back to media. Remember that websites like email don't really reach everybody inside or outside of the Green Party, that the internet is still a luxury for a lot of people. And what I know people that are not online yet. Sometimes, very often, you know, this is a kind of a stereotype that older people have not mastered computer skills or internet skills, but also other people who are, you know, who don't have a big income. They're maybe not able to afford a computer, and they get online very, very rarely, if at all. So what I recommend is setting people up with internet buddies. So let's say I have a buddy who is someone who is not able to get online. I'll make sure I'm in regular contact with the person. Sometimes I'll print things out and hand it to that person. So everybody is in. You know, we're not excluding people. Very important point, and this will be talked about more during the other workshops with Starlene and Craig, but you want to post videos of the candidate on your site. Maybe one or two really good ones on your home page, something that'll make you look really good. You also want to set up a video page on the website, and the Media Committee, by the way, has something called the Audio-Video Green Committee. Nick, you're a member of that. We call it the AV Greens List, and what it is it's an informal subcommittee. It's not really even a subcommittee at all. It's just a discussion group for Greens who are involved in various technical aspects involving broadcast media, you know, TV or radio, online broadcast, live streaming, video work. And sometimes the discussion there can get very technical, but we do have this pool of people around the country who have this expertise, and we can, if you have that expertise or background, we want you on that list. If you need somebody with that kind of background, please contact us, and we can forward you a few names to get in contact with.
How do you get in contact with that list?
You can send a message to me or Starlene. And my email address is Mclarty, my last name, M-C-L-A-R-T-Y, @greens.org. I think it's actually at the top of the syllabus there. And Starlene's is easy, Starlene, S-T-A-R-L-E-N-E @gp.org. And we can help you out. Let's talk about, by the way, if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to interrupt me along the way, and we'll also do some question and answer at the end of the workshop. Let's talk about press releases, media releases. This is one of the biggest ways in which we remain in contact with the mainstream as well as non-mainstream and niche and alternative media. The National Media Committee, we put out press releases regularly, I think on average about 1 or 2 a week. And we have information there that we think will be useful to the media in different ways. And I'll get into that in a minute, a little bit more. Make sure that you have all the main information about your campaign or about your state or local Green Party at the top of that at the top of that press release, the candidate's name, the office that he or she is seeking, contact information, the campaign website or party website, and also maybe the campaign media director's name, phone number, and email address that can be listed as a contact. An important thing to remember is that press releases are not op-ed columns, they're not position papers, they're not manifestos, they're not graduate dissertations. Reporters don't want to read that kind of stuff. They want to read more useful kinds of things. They're very short, concise announcements about a candidate or the party, maybe a position taken by the candidate, or maybe an action or an event that is coming up soon. And what I recommend is when you have a press release that is about a position that's being taken, about an issue, you want to call that a press release. If it's about an upcoming event or action, you call it an advisory. So if you look at the press releases that announce this convention, you look at our, if you go to gp.org and look at what we've got online for our press releases, you'll see it always says advisory at the top of these releases that are announcing the convention. And I think reporters will take advisories more seriously because it's something that they can cover, not just read and know about something. Now, an important thing about the content of a press release is the chief topic is always the candidate. No matter what you're writing about. You're not writing a release about rent control or about recycling. You're writing a press release on the candidate and the candidate's position on those things. The candidate needs to be in the email subject line, in the heading, and in the first line of the first paragraph. I've often received, in the past, I've received press releases from a state party or from a campaign announcing some position on something, but the candidate's name doesn't show up until like 3 or 4 paragraphs down. It begins like an essay, you know, the importance of recycling in modern life. That kind of, that's pointless, that's useless, that's not going to be useful at all. Think of it as you're writing a little play and the main character is the candidate. The candidate is always the most important thing. The candidate is the lead role.
You said in the subject line, in the title, and in the intro paragraph?
And in the first paragraph,
okay,
yes. That's sort of like a rule of thumb that I always use. For a very effective press release, you want to make it a video news release with a video clip of the candidate speaking somewhere. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, and the technical aspects of this will be covered in the other workshops. But if you have if you put out a video news release, you'll be sending them something, especially an online publication, that they can use. In other words, if they've got a video, the candidate talking about something, they do a little news article about it, they can just put that video right in the article. If somebody does that for your candidate, that's, you know, you've hit a home run right there. What's really good right now is that you can, you don't actually have to send them the video itself, you can just send them a link to the video. So very often you'll put the video online, let's say at your campaign website, and you'll do the news release, you'll pull the video news release at the top, or VNR or whatever, and send them that release, and you'll have the link to the video featured prominently. I'd have it like maybe 2 or 3 times. And so they just click on that link, it'll bring them directly to the video and they can use it however they want. I always recommend having quotes. If you look at our press releases from the National Party, you'll always see at least 1, but more often 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 quotes from different people. For a campaign press release, you'll want to have 1 or more quotes, and who is being quoted?
Candidate.
The candidate, exactly. The candidate is always the star of the show. The quote should always be quotable, a really good line or 2 that a reporter can lift from the release and use in a news article that the reporter is writing. I mentioned this before. Use releases to emphasize what distinguishes the candidate from all the other candidates that are running in the race. If other candidates also support recycling or rent control, show what makes your support for recycling or rent control different and more significant than their support. Stand out from the crowd. Always find ways to distinguish you or your candidate from the others. I recommend not sending out too many press releases. If you send out 1 every day or more than 1 a day, it begins to look like spam. If you send out one or 2 a week is pretty good. On the other hand, if something is in the news, something is going on in the news that involves the candidate directly, in other words, the candidate is part of the story, then it's okay to send more. But in general, you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to look like you're spamming the reporter. little bit more about press release content. You want to be as concise as possible. The ideal press release is maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs that are not very long, especially in things that are being read online are difficult to read if they're in long paragraphs. So you want paragraphs that are broken up into 2 or 3 sentences at the most each. Very often, if you read, when you look at news articles as they appear online, they're not long, heavy long paragraphs that you see in the New York Times, for instance. It'll be like, even the New York Times knows this. It'll be a couple of sentences per paragraph. You want to keep it as concise and focused as possible. If you're talking about a toxic waste dump, don't say, oh, and by the way, we also have a position on recycling. Keep it focused on that one particular issue. Make sure that you check and recheck all your facts, your grammar, your punctuation, your spelling. Don't send out sloppy work. Facts especially. You don't want to be in a position where you have to say, well, in a follow-up press release, well, we were wrong about that, about the number of people that attended last Thursday's meeting. It wasn't really 436, it was really 12. You don't want to be in that kind of, you don't want to look silly like that. Make sure everything is accurate. Distributing your press releases. Don't just distribute to the major newspapers or the major TV and radio stations or the big news websites in your area, but get your press releases to small publications, to specialty and niche media, online community bulletin boards, anything like that. Sometimes the small publications will give your coverage when the major media will not. And anybody who's run for office has probably noticed that before. Have you noticed that, Dave?
Yeah, just to reiterate what Scott's saying, it's the local weeklies or neighborhood newspapers that are most important, because by and large, they will take your press release. If they're going to use it, they'll use it as is without even rewording it. So that's really important to reach out to them and develop a relationship with the publisher and editors for those newspapers. And
you know, those little newspapers do often get widely read. And of course, the more people that see your name in print. There's something about seeing someone's name in print or on TV that makes you legitimate. It's just a way of modern thinking. You're not a real candidate until someone has seen you in the news. Someone has seen you in a, you know, even in a small newspaper. It leaves an effect on people.
I've had a lot of good responses from small local radio stations. This
Yes.
person was 1 hour at midnight, something like that. Something like that, local papers and such, especially if there's, well, like our national convention we had in one city, we gave it to a local small red paper there.
Right.
And they ran it.
And sometimes they love it that you sent them something. They're just so grateful to you. You know, it's like petting a little puppy dog or something.
And that's one other thing is that when we had our national convention, I told everyone, if you know a reporter, if you know anyone, tell me, and I can send out a press release to them. So I have everyone in my party looking out for those relationships, not just me, because I'm not everywhere. I'm in one part of the state. You got to get people from all over the state sending email addresses and such.
About 10 years ago, we had a candidate running in New Mexico, Carol Miller, who was, I think, running for the U.S. Senate. And what she did, you know, New Mexico is wide expanses of nothing, but there are these little radio stations dotted, these little towns that are just all around the state. She took a week or something like that and just jumped in her car and went to these little radio stations, just showed up, knocked on the front door and said, "Hi, I'm Carol Miller. I'm the Green candidate running for U.S. Senate. Can I say something? Would you like to record something with me?" And sometimes they recorded a brief interview. Sometimes they said, "Oh, why don't you get on the air right now?" And they just put her on the radio. Follow-up phone calls. After you've sent out a press release announcing a campaign event or an action or a press conference, call reporters and editors to talk up the event and answer questions that they might have. It's not necessary to call reporters for all releases. You know, if you're taking a position on a local issue, I do not recommend calling back. But you know, for let's say this convention here, I did a bunch of follow-up phone calls just to make sure that area media knew what was going on. make sure you call the right news desk. You know, a reporter whose beat is national news isn't going to be interested in your position on rent control in the city. You know, use your judgment. Don't call too much, or it looks like harassment. But you know, just give them the basics. If it sounds like they're not really interested in talking to you, just say, well, I'm glad to have met you. Glad you got this information. If you have any questions, call me back, and leave it at that. Don't try to keep them on the line. They're not going to be very appreciative of that. You can also pitch stories. If you know something that's really interesting about the candidate's about to do something interesting in the candidate's background, you can call a reporter and say, well, you know, there's this health bill coming up, and our candidate is a former nurse, or is currently a nurse, involved in the nurses union, and has been involved very much in the movement for single-payer national health care. You can make a call like that. This nurse has seen how people have been affected by skyrocketing medical costs, and some of them have gone into personal bankruptcy as a result of that. And I think there's an interesting story here that you might want to cover. Make sure, if you've got an exclusive like that you're pitching to one reporter, just pitch it to that reporter. Don't pitch exclusives to several reporters, because then it's not an exclusive and you'll only discredit yourself. Make sure you think about lead time if you're announcing an event. You want to get your press releases or ads or announcements out early enough. For a press conference or other newsworthy event, I recommend sending out releases, or I should say advisories, maybe 7 to 9 days before the event, and then secondly, maybe the 1 or 2 days right before the event. So that reminds them twice. With this national convention, we first sent out an announcement that Baltimore had been chosen, and then about a month or so ago, we put out an advisory giving them some details about what to expect, that the nomination day would take place on Saturday, that we expect Roseanne Barr and Jill Stein and Kent Mess play here. And then during the past week, we sent out 2 advisories, one that went out on Thursday that had kind of a semi-final schedule of events for the news media, and then another one Tuesday morning that had a less semi-final and more final. I say, there's never anything final, of course, with the Green Party until like the event starts to take place, right? That had much greater detail, you know, more speakers listed, more specific things. And even after that, I did get a call from reporters, including the Baltimore Sun and especially C-SPAN. C-SPAN will be covering. They'll be airing the nomination day live on Saturday. Cool. And they wanted to know everything about everybody who might step up in front of the microphone. Because, you know, they have to scroll beneath with the information, you know, the name of the person speaking. Don't send out releases on Friday or Saturday or early on Sunday, except in rare circumstances. You know, in other words, breaking newsworthy stories, or an ongoing story in which the candidate is already getting a lot of coverage. Those are just bad days. By Friday afternoon, reporters are not really interested in anything new. They're interested in what they're going to do for the weekend. So sometimes I've sent out releases early on Friday, but by noon, that's the after that, you might as well just wait until Monday, or late on Sunday, but with a Monday date on the release. I recommend setting up a release page on your campaign website or your state party website where all your press releases and advisories are cataloged, and they've got the text. You know, you click on it and it brings you to the text of those releases, and that serves as a kind of an archive for your campaign and for your party. And if you, for instance, if you go to gp.org, click on the press release page, and it's got all the press releases we've ever done there. But, you know, in reverse order. You start from the top, it's got the most recent press release. So anybody that wants to know where we stand on anything, wants to know what kind of announcements we make. There's a kind of a record of what the party has been doing, what the party has been saying, pretty much since the year 2000. And then finally, I recommend keeping press clippings of the media coverage of your campaign. And press clippings used to mean folders with lots of articles cut out of newspapers. Some people maybe still want to do that, but you know, we've got something called the internet now, so you don't have to do that. You don't have to stuff your closet with lots of newspaper articles. You can just archive it online.
My question would be then, how long do these papers archive it? How long do they keep the content up on the web, on their websites for? Forever, or for a good long time, or?
A lot of them keep things up for a real long time now, and you know, you can see things archived from like 10 or 12 years ago. Some papers will charge a subscription fee for access to their archived articles. For instance, the New York Times, which has severely limited people's access to, non-subscribers' access to free articles. You know, if you, the cutoff time now for the New York Times is a week. If you want to look for anything older than a week, you've got to have a subscription. What I do is I copy the entire article into an email. If you're on the media committee list, you often get these articles because we circulate articles among ourselves so people know what's going on. But I archive the text of the article itself along with the title and the source and the URL for my own purposes. So I've got a kind of a backlog of articles that I've kept. Yes?
Yeah, Nick, what I also recommend is that you literally recreate that article in the press on the candidate's website.
Okay.
Giving full lists of where it came from and a link back to the original source. Because as Scott was saying, some articles could be up there forever, but then if they change the software system that they're using to manage the site, all the URLs are going to change, then the links are going to disappear.
Okay.
So you're much better off just creating them individually in the campaign site.
Okay.
Before I move on, are there any questions about press releases? I actually brought a press release with me that I was going to talk about, but I didn't get a chance this morning with all the other stuff
Scott,
we were fretting over. Yeah.
This is the relationship between op-eds and press releases. We noted that sometimes when we write a press release, it will be picked up, especially the online media sometimes is hungry for content.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll treat it like an op-ed. They'll just pop the whole press release down. It's properly written.
Yes.
So should we be trying for that twofer, you know, of making it serve both purposes, or should we separate?
When that happens, that's really...
Would you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Sometimes the news medium will take a press release, take the text of the press release, lift it from the release and stick it into the publication, usually an online publication, and call it an article or call it an op-ed. Now, when they do that, that's great news. That's really, really good. You know, in other words, they've given you space to say something, and they've let you say everything. They let you have complete control. You know, usually when you cover it in an article, you don't really have control. You're subject to the whims of the reporter, the biases of the editors, and they edit what you say. Sometimes they don't edit it in a way that you find positive. So it's really good when you get something undiluted like that published. The thing is, that doesn't happen often enough for you to change your press release style. What I would say is make sure your press releases are very, very clearly written. If you're making an argument for a position you're taking, make sure that argument is presented so someone who is a fifth grader can understand it. And thus, if it does get picked up, it'll be very clear and very easy to read. But you know, you're writing a press release. You're not writing an op-ed column. I do recommend writing op-ed columns. I'll get to that in a little bit. That is very useful. I've got a press release here that you can pass around, you can take a look at. I think most people here have read press releases before, so you've got a pretty good idea. And you can also, of course, go to the gp.org and to anybody's campaign site. I have seen a few campaign websites that are pretty awful, but I've seen a few excellent ones too. A good example, two good examples that I've seen. Well, one probably isn't up anymore, and that's Howie Hawkins, who is running for governor in New York.
It's still up.
Oh, is it still up? Okay.
Yeah.
Howie Hawkins, I think it's howiehawkins.org.
Yeah.
And I have not looked at it yet, but Colin Beavan, I'm told, has a very good website. He's running for Congress in Brooklyn.
How do you spell his name?
COLINBEAVAN. He is going to be one of the featured speakers on the program on Saturday.
And tell
His
them who
URL
he is.
is votecolin.com.
Votecolin.com? Okay.
Or .org, both will get you there.
Yeah, but he was a little bit famous already. He had a blog he lived a year in an apartment, I think in Manhattan or Brooklyn or something like that, in which he tried to leave no carbon footprint. And he didn't use any electricity.
Is it low impact man?
Low impact man. That's
No
right.
impact or low
Yes.
impact civil.
Yeah, that's exactly it, yeah. And so he became a little bit noteworthy because of that. A few people came in. I don't think you got syllabuses. I've got a syllabus for you. Did you get one? Let me get you one. I think it's my last copy. Lock the doors, please. Okay. Let's talk about press conferences. And let me check the time. Okay, we're doing fine. Press conferences are kind of a touchy thing. A lot of Greens say, we should have press conferences all the time to announce different things. But the problem about press conferences is it's often difficult to get reporters to show up at them. So I recommend holding press conferences when you have real news to announce, something that's really newsworthy, not just an announcement that you support recycling or rent control. That's not worthy of a press conference. Reporters prefer not to attend press conferences if they don't have to. They have other things to do, or if maybe they're lazy or something. Some good reasons for press conferences might be an announcement of your campaign. Your kickoff press conference, that's worth doing. That's something worth having. If you've organized 300 tenants to march on City Hall for rent control, that's worth having a press conference. If you've filed a lawsuit against an unfair election rule in your district, and there are ways to make your press conference visually interesting. And if it's visually interesting, you're more likely to get it covered. It looks good on camera. Use a unique location, people in unusual costumes, catchy graphics or props or something like that on display. In Washington, D.C., we have the D.C. Statehood Green Party. We're in a campaign for D.C. statehood, and at one rally that we had, a couple of people showed up wearing Minuteman costumes from 1776, and that looks great on camera. And some reporters showed up and took pictures of that, took video of that. Reporters are looking for, and editors are looking for stimulating things to look good on TV. If for a campaign announcement press conference, that should focus exclusively on the candidate, not on other people. Don't talk about your competition, talk about yourself. This is about you. Make sure the issue to be addressed at the press conference is relevant. City council candidates should not be there talking about the Middle East. If you're running for school board, you're not there to talk about global warming. Talk about the local issues that are that are involved. And I say that because I have seen events where people, candidates from other parties, not the Green Party, fortunately, but from other parties. I think there was an event that was attended by the mayoral candidate from the Socialist Workers' Party who got up to the microphone and talked about Cuba. And, you know, that's not really relevant to somebody who's running for mayor in Washington, D.C. There are plenty of other places to talk about it, just not at a mayoral candidates forum. Tips for your press conference program. If you're introducing a candidate, have someone else get up first and do an introduction for the candidate. And you know, this person should be someone who knows the candidate well and is going to get up there and praise the candidate, not somebody who's going to get up there and go off message. I guess one of the most important things that you can apply to anything I say is always stay on message. Don't get distracted. And then let the candidate talk for a few minutes. Keep everything as concise as possible. Remember that 2 minutes of really good, very memorable, quotable sentences is much better than a 15-minute lecture. And that's something I always want to shout in the ears of Greens all across the country, because we have a tendency to drone on and on about important big issues and all that. If it can be summed up, if it can be expressed really well in 2 minutes with lots of really great, memorable, quotable lines, then you'll reach a lot more people. Be very specific, be very abstract, be very relevant to the state or town that you're running in. Don't recite your platform for reasons that I've mentioned before. Tell a story. If you can deliver an anecdote, an interesting account of something that happened in your life, in the candidate's life, that is relevant to the campaign. I'm running because I'm running for the state legislature because health care is something that's going to be considered at the statewide level soon. I've had 2 people in my family pass away because we feel they did not get adequate health care. And they did not have adequate coverage. They were turned away from certain kinds of medical treatment that they were certainly qualified for, but the insurance company didn't want to pay for that. And so I'm running for office right now because of that. My Aunt Thelma passed away. We were very close, and that motivated me to get into politics. If you have a good story like that, I'm running for office because my building was converted from rental to condos, and I lost my place to live. We need rent control in this town. The more personal you are, the more memorable you're going to be, the more interesting you're going to be for a story. Don't hesitate to talk about really mundane neighborhood issues that are very important to voters. One thing, if you're running for municipal office, Dave, you know about this, constituent services. A lot of Greens just aren't interested in constituent services. They were interested in global warming, they're interested in ending the war in Afghanistan, but constituent services is just not very glamorous. On the other hand, if you are a candidate who knows constituent services well, I've seen this over and over again. John Halley, who was on the board of aldermen in New Haven, Connecticut for several terms and finally retired, was very, very effective at constituent services. He went from house to house asking what people's concerns were about the services they were getting from the city, and he was an outstanding candidate because of that. Do you want to talk about that, Dave? I should mention Dave Doonan is mayor of Greenwich, New York. How many terms?
I just started my second 4-year term.
Okay. Do you want to talk about how to talk about constituent services and the importance of talking about constituent services?
Yeah, sometimes it's one of the hardest things to do. Because what you're dealing with is not necessarily just an unhappy person, but a person unhappy with their neighbors. So in one sense, it can come down to social work, but it is critical. One of the very first things I started to do when people would call up and complain when I first got into office was try and actually physically meet with them. I still try and do that as much as possible because people really want to know that they're being listened to. What I've also tried to do is when I'm dealing with a constituent who's unhappy about something, if I have information that's going to be a benefit to them as well, I'll start out with that. And then I'll tell them why, for whatever reason, we can't do exactly what they want to do. But it's really important, and it's really, I've really been fortunate in the community I am. The department heads are, have all been born and raised there, and they're really well committed to the community as well. So that really, really is a tremendous asset as well. So if you do get into office, get to know the people that you're working with as well. And I really recommend that if you're going to run for office, try and spend 6 months to a year, if at all possible, attending the board meetings for that particular office to get an understanding of what's going on. So God forbid you run for an executive position and win. You're not sitting there for the very first meeting chairing something you have no idea what you're supposed to be doing. So, but yes, Scott's absolutely right. People want to know that they're not only being listened to, but that you're doing what you think is best to make the community a better place. And so long as they understand that, they'll understand why you can't always do what they want you to do exactly.
Sam Smith has said several times when I've talked to him about this, he said, really politics is about what are you going to do for me? Mm-hmm. And for us, you know, the Green Party, what are we going to do to make people's lives better? What are we going to do to make people healthier? What are we going to do to make people more secure in their homes? What are we going to do about the pile of garbage behind their house? Things like, what are we going to do about the lighting, the street lights on their block? A few other things about press releases, about press conferences. Say something funny. I learned this actually at a candidates forum. I ran for city council in DC in 1998. I was at a candidates forum in which it was before the primary election, so there was me, the Green candidate, there was a guy from one other alternative party, and then there was about 7 or 8 Democratic candidates. You know, big crowd of also-rans. Well, the host of the candidates forum decided that he would pass around the microphone and just let people talk, let the candidates talk to each other, argue amongst themselves for about 5 minutes and see where that went. Well, it quickly turned into a quarrel between the two front-running candidates. And they were just sort of yelling at each other back and forth. And I finally got a hold of the microphone and I said, oh, I think we've heard enough about Frank Smith and Jim Graham. I want to talk about me. And the whole audience busted out laughing. And it was a great moment. Look for moments like that. Look for things that are going to make people laugh, because if they laugh, they're with you. They feel good being with you. And you know, if you say something that's funny and quotable, it might show up in print. Make eye contact with your audience. Speak out, don't mumble. Try to develop a kind of a rhetorical way of speaking. Very often I've attended candidates forums or press conferences and you get somebody who is, well, I'm running for the office of mayor of Washington, D.C. I really hope that you vote for me. I'd be very proud to be an elected official. Don't do that. You want to be, what's the word, orotund. You want to be kind of big. I've actually got a little bit of laryngitis right now. I've got a kind of a sore throat and a cold, so I feel a little bit restricted. But even now, when I'm speaking to the person in the last row. Hi, how are you? You know, make sure people hear you. Be a little bit theatrical. Use your hands a little bit. Use some gestures. Look lively. Don't look like a corpse or a mumbler up on stage. One thing I recommend is that you set aside politics for a little while and study what makes people like Ronald Reagan or Bill Clinton as effective speakers. You know, people that have terrible messages sometimes are able to deliver it very, very well. Ronald Reagan was perfect at that. He could be talking about complete nonsense, but this probably came from his background as an actor. He could make it sound convincing. And they would do other theatrical things too. And I'm not just talking about putting a little bit of rouge on his cheeks. If you go back and look at clips, he often did his press conferences in front of a row of columns that was somewhere in the White House. A long row of columns that spread down to the end of a long hallway. Well, he would enter all the way from the back and walk up past all those columns and come up to the podium. And that looked great. It was a grand entrance. If you can do a grand entrance, anything like that will make you look good. When we do press conferences now, I like to do that. I like to get everybody, have all the people who are speaking and all the people who are attending the press conference outside of the press conference room, get all the media in there, and then at a certain point when we're ready, right at the moment the press conference begins, we all go in as a group, we all know where to stand, and that grand entrance, united entrance, makes us look great. On a press conference, you want to follow the formal presentation period with a question and answer period for reporters. And you want to prepare for that Q&A because they're going to ask you some questions, and a lot of the questions could be very hard. Know your material, prepare. Have things prepared for you. Have a cheat sheet if they're going to ask you facts and figures about something. Have that information either cataloged in your brain or on a cheat sheet in front of you. There's nothing wrong with using a cheat sheet. When you answer the reporter's questions, frame the answers to include the key points that you want to make whenever possible. Use complete sentences so that the quote will make sense if it's even if it's edited somewhat. If you don't know something, if you don't know the answer, say, you know what, I don't know, I'm going to get back to you very quickly. And then right after the press conference, find out the answer and get back to them very quickly, and it'll show that you're a very serious candidate. It's okay to say no, I'll get back to you on that. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't fumble for words. Be ready and be prepared and be friendly. Even if you get a hostile question, one thing that I've learned is that sometimes very sympathetic reporters will ask you a hostile question. It's not because they're hostile, it's because they want some good copy. They want something that's a little bit controversial. Don't be afraid of that. Don't get intimidated when you get asked hostile questions, difficult questions. Understand that that's part of being a candidate. If you're a party leader, that's part of being a party leader. Welcome that kind of thing. I've come to enjoy it. I like sparring a little bit when I'm online with somebody. And also remember, I said work your key points in whenever I'm interviewed and I'm asked questions. I always think there are like 2 or 3 things that I want to get in, I want to say regardless of what they ask me. And I work those into my answers some way or another. And if the interview ends 5 minutes later, if the question and answer period ends 5 or 10 minutes later, and I've gotten those key points in, I feel really good about the press conference or the interview that just took place.
And if you haven't, do you proceed to try to stick them in at the end?
No, I just sort of groan and...
Okay, just curious.
I probably don't know, I used to, the next thing I'm going to say, I used to need to stress over and over to Green candidates, but I think Green candidates understand this now. Look like a candidate. Look kind of professional. About 10 years ago, when the Green Party was still a lot younger than it is now and a lot less experienced, we still had candidates showing up for press conferences wearing cut-off jeans and a t-shirt. And you know, sometimes you'd ask them why they did that, and they said, well, I'm relating to my audience. Well, you're not relating to your audience. You're actually insulting them, because what they expect is somebody who looks good. They want to vote for somebody who looks like a candidate.
The adage I've always said, you can dress like them, we just don't have to think like them.
That's a good way of putting it, yes.
Yeah.
You know, and basically remember that press conferences, like other public appearances are theatrical events. It's okay to understand them that way, and you're dressing for the part. There are situations in which you don't have to dress up. For instance, if you are running for office and there's a big issue having to do with, let's say, a landfill where garbage has improperly been dumped, or toxic waste or something like that, and you're there holding a shovel as part of the visual impact that you want to make, it's okay to wear a pair of jeans in a case like that, because that's the scenario that you're creating for the press right there. But those are very limited kinds of situations. Sometimes, you know, if you're going to run a race, you're going to run a marathon, you want to dress like as a candidate, you want to dress like the other runners, but of course you want to have your t-shirt, your campaign t-shirt, to look very conspicuous. Press kits. I recommend press conferences having a press kit available. This is especially important for campaigns. The press kit will be a little set of information, some handouts. Sometimes you want to put them in a folder, sometimes you can just paper clip them. The press kit will, let's say it's a press conference that is introducing a candidate. You want a little bio of the candidate, a basic statement by the candidate, maybe a transcription of the candidate's comments that he or she will be making during the press conference. If you can do it, I recommend this. Have a nice picture of the candidate, and then maybe some further background information. If the candidate has written a very good article or op-ed piece that has been published somewhere, stick that in too. And you can put that in a folder, you can paperclip it, and then have sets of these that you hand out to the reporters so they can take something away. If you are doing a press conference on a particular issue, let's say you're doing it on that toxic waste that has been dumped into the landfill, then you want to have a set of talking points, the most important things that you want the reporters to know about why you're there, why you're holding the press conference, the key issues involved in that issue. I recommend having business cards. If you're a candidate, having business cards work really, really well. They're very easy to hand out. They're easy to pass around. There's something that, you know, if you hand them a flyer, they might just toss it to the side. But if you hand them a business card, they'll stick it in their pocket. People don't throw away business cards as quickly as they throw away other things. Yes?
Yeah, just to reinforce that, you can get a QR code, which are these queer little things that look like a barcode, but you take a picture of that with your cell phone, and it'll take you directly to your campaign website.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
It's those little weird square things that are
Yep.
like in ads.
Yep.
Yep.
On that business card, you want to have the basic information, your full name and office you're running for, phone, email address, campaign website, social media site if you have one. It's easier to give people information than to have them write stuff down and you tell them. During the course of the press conference, you want to repeat your campaign website a few times, as well as have it on your information. Or if you're representing your state party or local party, have your state party or local party website as well. Sometimes for press conferences, if you can do this, have a banner or something that has the name of the candidate and other information, maybe a nice graphic or something like that. When we have our press conferences at these national conventions, we have a big pale blue backdrop that has a repeating pattern of gp.org on it. And it looks very nice, and pale blue is a nice color to stand in front of. I recommend using a neutral color like that. Don't use white. People look terrible when they stand in front of a white backdrop. It makes people look kind of blotchy. You know, use a little bit of color. Use a little bit of color sense. A pale blue or a gray. Green this is gonna be heresy to say this, green is not really a great color for backdrops, unless you're standing in front of a natural, you know, if you're standing in front of a park or a bunch of trees, then it looks great. But pale green can often look kind of sickly. And that goes for clothing too. Only some people can wear green and look good. Don't repeat this. 2004, David Cobb got up to the microphone at the Milwaukee convention and delivered his nominee speech. And he did a very good job. He's a terrific speaker. But he wore this kind of pukey green colored shirt, and I wish I had told him a nice blue, a nice pink shirt, gray or something like that. Don't wear green. Wear a green button. Wear a green trim or something like that. But, you know, like all other humans, we have our color preferences for clothing. I don't want to get into fashion too much, though. I'll get drummed out of the party.
No skirts?
Oh, sure, I mean, you know,
For guys?
under certain circumstances. Remember that a press conference is for the media, campaign rallies are for supporters. Only reporters should be allowed to ask questions at a press conference. Your supporters, if they attend a press conference, should not be there to applaud or to ask questions. There are some situations in which that can change. For instance, if you're having a press conference that is really sort of a rally. For instance, this DC Statehood Green Party, we held a couple of press conferences on the front steps of City Hall, right on the sidewalk there. And you know, normally I actually don't recommend inviting a lot of people to press conferences anyway. Press conferences are really for the media. They're not for a general audience. But if you do something outside, that's a kind of a different thing. Then you want a lot of people to show up to hold banners and things and look conspicuous because you're showing support. The press conferences that we held at our national meetings, this has caused a little bit of controversy within the party a few times, but it's not really for Green Party members to attend. It's for the media. It's exclusively for the media. And, you know, we have limited space. We already have something like 60 reporters, members of the media that have registered as members of the media to cover this event, which is really, really good news, and it means we're going to get a crowded press conference room. So it's going to have to be quite exclusive this year. We're not really happy about doing that. And a few times in the past, in Alfred, for instance, we had a press conference outside. We could either have held it in a classroom at Alfred University with that kind of dull-looking lighting and crummy background, or we could hold it outside in front of these beautiful rolling hills. So we decided to have it outside, which meant that we'd have a lot larger audience there. That was fine with us. We didn't expect a lot of media anywhere. We looked great, except that at the time that we did it, about 10 or 15 minutes into the press conference, the fire siren went off and just drowned out everything else. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I sure do.
And it was a kind of a precious moment. So, you know, you face little you face little dilemmas like that, and you just have to roll with them. Let's see, video. I don't want to talk too much about video because that's going to get covered in the other workshops. One thing I want to talk about that's very important is developing your email list. Now, I talked about reporters before and developing your lists of media contacts. That's pretty obvious. But also, you want to get the word out among party members, among friends of the party. So you want to make sure that your press releases and your major campaign announcements or other party announcements get out to reach as many people as possible in your state or local party. And so you want to use email lists. You want to collect email lists to which you want to send press releases and big announcements. And you know, urge people to forward such announcements, such press releases to their own lists as well. In other words, you want to develop a network. And we've been working over the years to develop our national network. So when we put out a press release, it goes out to you know, hundreds and hundreds of our media contacts. Actually, it might be thousands and thousands at this point. But also, we send it out to various Green Party lists. If you're on the National Committee list, you are receiving our press releases. And we try to remind people on these lists, take these press releases and forward them to your state and local parties as well. So everybody in your party knows what's going on. A lot of parties are very, very diligent about this. We also know that it's not taking place in some states. It's a kind of a source of frustration, but you can't really twist people's arms. But please, if you are representing your state party, make sure you get the national press releases, that you're receiving them, and that you are forwarding them to your own lists as well. Lisa?
I was just telling her not to get my shot when she came in. I'm sorry. I just
Okay.
wanted to come in.
No, I couldn't make up my mind with you. I was in wait.
Yeah, sorry, thank you.
And that brings up a very important point. Never upstage people. Videos are extremely important, and again, this is going to get covered when the other workshops take place. But when you have a video of your candidate, a video of something that's interesting that's going on in your state or local party, please get that out to people. People love to watch videos. People love to see themselves in videos. The wider the net that you cast, the more people you reach, the more people you bring in, the more people feel like they're part of the party. Again, as I said before, we have this AV network. There's AV Greens list of people that can assist you. Some more suggestions. The campaign media director, if you have one, can work on setting up interviews with reporters and editors for the candidate. As I said before, this is often called pitching a story. If an editor or reporter talks to the candidate directly, it's more likely that they'll warm up to the candidate and be a lot more sympathetic. I should mention a very important point here. Greens complain about our coverage in the mainstream media quite a bit. And we'll say, well, it's the corporate media, and the corporate media is biased against us. Well, I've got a secret for you. That is not really true. It's sometimes true around the margins. It occasionally we can detect certain kinds of bias. But in general, what the mainstream media, like any kind of media, are looking for is a good story. And a candidate who complains, well, they just never covered me, they were just never interested in me. Very often you'll find that candidate didn't do anything interesting, didn't do anything newsworthy. Please do things that are newsworthy, because that will get you coverage. I can't guarantee you'll get you coverage, but more often than not, if you do something colorful, do something that they can't avoid missing. Wait, did I say it right? Do something that they can't avoid. That was a double negative right there. I'll give you an example. I'll give you two examples. In Washington, D.C., we felt we were not getting covered by the Washington Post. We were not getting mentioned in articles, general articles about the city council races. So what we decided to do is hold a press conference right outside the front door of the Washington Post's office, the corner of L and 15th Streets. And Adam Eidinger got us a sound system and played loud hip-hop music. This is about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And we had a microphone there, and we notified all the other media as well that we were doing this and why we were doing it. So we automatically became interesting to a lot of the local press. And then we turned down the hip-hop music, and we started passing the microphones to the candidates and had them each speak for a couple of minutes. And we looked up at the Washington Post building, and there were all these faces pressed against the glass, trying to figure out what was going on. And at a certain point, kind of close to the beginning of the press conference, a local reporter stepped out and said, "Hi, I'm the local reporter from the Post. What's going on?" And we got coverage. They wrote an article about us. One of the main points that we mentioned over and over again throughout this press conference is that in terms of in terms of electoral performance, in other words, the number of votes that our candidates got, we were the second party in Washington, D.C., ahead of the Republicans. We routinely, even when we had the same number of candidates, we routinely got more votes than the Republicans did. The Republicans were ahead of us in terms of registration numbers, but electoral performance, we are DC's second party. We repeated this over and over again, and that got into the paper right there. And of course, you know, you do something like that, you have a great time doing it. You know, kind of thumbing your nose, but also inviting them at the same time. And you know, it's not really a hostile thing to do. You're just doing something to capture their attention. Another good example, I mentioned Adam Eidinger, who is always full of great ideas. When he was running for shadow representative, which is you know, like non-voting representative to Congress, he created something called the DC statehood flag, and it was this giant flag that like would cover most of that wall over there, and it said DC, free DC, DC statehood now. It was made out of hemp, so you know there's a story right there, and it was just gorgeous. I mean, it was enormous. Well, you know, we used it in several marches and rallies and things like that, but then he started draping it over the overpasses in the you know, Rock Creek Parkway and other arteries traffic arteries going into DC, so nobody could miss it. And that looked great in the news, and of course pictures of it started to turn up in local papers. So anything you do like that captures attention is going to benefit your campaign. It gets your name out in front of the public. One really good way to get a candidate's name in the news is write guest op-ed columns or articles or letters to the editor, written by the candidate on timely topics. I wrote a guest opinion piece for the Northwest Current in Washington, D.C., and it looked great. It got published, and I made a clipping of it and copied that, and whenever I did public appearances, I had stacks of these to hand out to people because, you know, it shows that you're somebody who is knowledgeable and very serious about these important issues. I wrote about, I think it had to do with, something that had to do with development in Columbia Heights, one of the neighborhoods in D.C. And it showed me to be personally involved. And, you know, your media director can help submit them for publication. If a major newspaper refuses to publish it, get it published in a smaller community paper. You'll you know, even if you don't reach tens or hundreds of thousands of people, at least you'll reach thousands of people. I recommend, this is for people running for statewide office, for things like maybe for U.S. Senate or whatever. I recommend opening a Skype account. Is everybody here familiar with Skype? And using that, you can use that for face-to-face interviews with reporters. And if you've got a good image, your webcam gives you a good image, they can record that and use that in their news coverage. Make sure that your...
But Scott,
yes.
on the good image, treat it like a press conference with the image behind you on the Skype.
Yes, make it look good.
Because it'll look like your bedroom otherwise.
Yes. Make sure that you get your information to these special web pages or little booklets that a lot of newspapers prepare that are like candidates' guides. That often get published maybe about a week or two before the election takes place, as well as your photos. You want your photo in there. There are some websites that are specifically for candidates. I've recommended some. I think I've recommended some on the syllabus, but the problem is these sort of go in and out. They'll exist for a couple of years and they'll disappear. So it might take a little bit of a search to look for them. You can register the candidate's name on Google Alerts. That's www.google.com/alerts. And you can use this to respond to online articles about the candidate and blogs as soon as they get published. And so you can offer good information about your candidate and before others post their responses. So for instance, you know, we've got a Google alert for Green Party. And so we know very quickly when an article has been published, let's say in the Washington Post or the Houston Chronicle or the Cleveland Plains Dealer or something like that, and if it's something that we want to respond to, we can get a response to them very, very rapidly. Let's see, remember that politics is theater? I talked about that already. Look for theatrical events, public occasions, rallies, demos. Yeah, I pretty much covered that already. Let's see, we should be getting close to 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So well, let me open it up right now. If anybody has questions, you want to discuss anything.
Can I record these questions? Anybody that doesn't want to get on camera, I just put it in writing. We'll edit it, never mind.
Okay. And if necessary, I can repeat the question for
Okay.
you. Yes?
I was wondering where the line was where, yeah, I'm running for a county position,
Mm-hmm.
which includes cities and some state issues. How specific do you want your coverage to be? You want to make sure you're covering issues important to everyone, but if you cover issues important to everyone, you're going to have 30 pages of issues, especially if you're running for a state office. You can't focus on one issue in one tiny little town. So there's that middle ground. You don't want to go too big, this huge thing happening in the Middle East, but you don't want to have every tiny issue happening to every single person.
And you're running for a county office?
I'm running for a county office.
Yeah. Well, Middle East, you're not going to cover
Yeah,
Middle East.
obviously.
But on the other hand, there are, you know, you've obviously got different constituencies. Talk to people and find out what people are interested in. One thing that I learned when I ran for city council is that whenever I talk to people, let them do 75% of the talking. And they'll tell you what is most important to them. Blend that with your own specific interests, and then come up with, let's say, maybe 3 or 4 things that you want to make your key issues for the campaign. And, you know, let's say it's a school issue. Let's say the schools are being taken over by the city council, or they're being privatized or something like that. You can make that. The Democrats have traditionally been in favor of that. That's one sharp distinction between Democrats and Greens. You want to make that one of your main issues. Talk to parents, find out what their concerns are about that, and in crafting your position, speak to their specific concerns. Is that clear? Is that
Well, I want to make
useful?
sure that, well, I'm not just running myself for office, I'm also the media coordinator for the state.
okay?
So in guiding people running for like Senate or something like that, someone who's running for Senate can't focus on every single issue in every single town.
Right.
So,
Well, and the truth of the matter is that the candidate running for the U.S. Senate isn't really going to deal with really local issues anyway. So you've got to use some judgment, use some discretion about what are people talking to that senator the most. I mean, if it's a U.S. senator, they're going to be addressing national issues right there. So, you know, the local sewer issue in one town isn't going to be germane to that candidate's platform, really.
okay.
But, you know, if you have a basic set of principles, and this is one of the strengths of being with the Green Party, is that even when we don't have an exact position on something, we have a set of principles that informs our position. And, you know, sometimes it can yield a different Green Party candidates running in different regions of the country will have a different issue, have a different point of view on something. For instance, gun control. Candidates running in, Green candidates running in Wyoming or Alaska or whatever, where people hunt, and they often eat what they hunt. we don't really have a strong position against that in those, that's practically an issue of sustainability in those areas. On the other hand, gun control is a much different kind of issue in downtown Baltimore, in certain parts of Baltimore. So, you know, you have to apply basic green principles, and one of the green principles, of course, is decentralization. So you know, it's not a dictatorial program that we are following as green candidates. Does that speak to your question at all?
Scott, what about local resources? We can't have a Scott Mclarty in every town, unfortunately. But in terms
You
of...
don't want a Scott McCarty.
Don't say that. But in general, though, are there media resources we can go to and learn about these things locally? Is there like an outreach that the media does to educate the public? Or
Some media do provide that. And in fact, in Washington, D.C., I went to a forum that a few members of the media held for people involved in politics, and specifically candidates. And this was one of the most useful things that I ever attended. There was a candidate there was a member of the media there, his name is Tom Sherwood, who reports for NBC4, and who's always been very friendly to us too. He's somebody I can call up, he'll know who I am, and we can chat for a little bit. And he had lots of good advice. And so look for those things. I can remember one particular piece of advice that he had, and I'll tell you what it is, and that is always have 3 examples, if you're running for a legislative office like city council or state legislature, always have 3 examples of specific legislation that you would pursue, that you would work on if elected. And I wrote that down. I made that kind of a principle, and I tell that to all our candidates running in D.C. Have 3 legislative ideas that you're always ready to talk about. Sure enough, a couple of months later, I was at a candidates forum, and there was the Democrat, and there was another alternative party candidate. This was after the primary, and the reporter asked for 3 examples. And I got up, and I was ready, I was prepared, I looked great, and the other 2 were not. And then there was another instance when one of our candidates, Renee Bowser, who was running for city council in Ward 4, was on the radio, Kojo Namdi, WAMU, the NPR station, and along with her Democratic competition, Adrian Fenty, and Kojo, the host, asked the same thing. And Renee, who's very, very smart, was very prepared, and then the reporter asked Adrian Fenty, well, what 3 legislative ideas would you pursue? And he said, well, I'm for what the people want. And Kojo said, which is, and then there was a little bit of dead air. One of my favorite moments ever on the radio.
No idea.
And I could hear, because Renee was so prepared in that way, I could hear that at the beginning of the show, Kojo was obviously biased towards Adrian Fenty. By the end of the show, you could hear that he knew that Renee was the one who knew her stuff. Yes?
You were talking about email lists, and one thing I've noticed about the Jill Stein campaign is I was getting emails from this person named Ben Mansky, who I didn't know who the hell he was. First of all, I thought he was a move-on person and was just like deleting them.
Don't tell Ben you said that.
Well,
Oh, maybe you should.
I'm recording, Ben, I did say that. And so how did that happen? And are those email lists, I'm in Oregon Green.
Okay.
Are those email lists available to all the candidates? And how did they get a hold of that and do that?
I can't speak for the Stein campaign. I don't know how they collected them.
I can, if you want me to.
I'm sorry?
I can say something about it.
Oh, if you want to answer that question, go ahead.
The website was probably the place where most of those came in. Like if you ever went to the website and said, oh, I'm interested, in something, and there's a little sign up where on the website you just type in your email address, and that puts you in the list, and then you get these periodic mails. So
Okay.
you can unsubscribe, if you think it's too many.
And the extra question, how
I
did
have another answer to that as
Okay.
well. But should I
Yeah,
answer?
I just because I
When you-
if I was thinking of running somebody for president, I would wanna go, oh, well, we should do this. And,
Yeah. Well, one way you can, there was a period of time in which you had some confusion about what was being sent to you and why, right?
yeah, for a very long time,
Okay.
actually.
Well, it's very important that you're clear in the name of the person or the body that's sending the message, and then in the subject line, what you're about. So for instance, if you get a message that said, and you didn't know me, it said, Scott Mclarty, now is the time, please join us. That tells you nothing.
Yeah.
And if I saw a message like that, I would just delete it. You know, there'd be no reason for me to read it at all. It's just too vague. On the other hand, if I got something that said, Scott Mclarty, the Jill Stein campaign for president is off and running, please join us, then you know.
But I still wouldn't have known that that was a Green Party thing.
Well, in that case, for the first, you know, for several
Back
months.
6 months ago,
For several months, actually, whenever I put out anything about Roseanne Barr or Jill Stein in a press release or in an email message, I always put Green presidential candidate Jill Stein, so people would know right away. So people get used to seeing that over and over
I had
again.
no idea who this
Yeah.
person was.
In other words, you have to be, like I said before, you have to be absolutely clear who you are, what your intentions are.
Yeah, and
You
then-
can't take anything for granted. Democrats or Republicans can.
The third
When they write about
question is,
Obama or Romney, we
how
can't.
do candidates get a hold of those lists
Uh,
from the National Party?
I-
Is there a vetting process?
The National Party does share, when the National Party does an official recognition of a presidential candidate, and that's done through the Presidential Campaign Support Committee, then the National Party does share resources with that campaign. So for instance, the Media Committee, we subscribe to something called Gebby's List, and I should have mentioned this before. Gebby's List is a comprehensive list of reporters nationwide, and you have to pay for a subscription to it. We use it when we send out national releases. We also share that with state and local parties and campaigns when they ask us for help. As far as national email lists or anything like that of members, I can't. You'd have to ask somebody else about that. But let me repeat that. If you're running for a state or local office, you want access to Gebby's List, actually the best person to contact is Starlene, STARLENE @gp.org. Let her know that you're a candidate, that you're running for office and your party supports you, and she can set you up with access to that list, so you have all your local reporters' contact information.
There's also a little bit of confusion sometimes between candidates' operations in the party.
Yes.
And they're not the same.
Yes.
And so just because Jill Stein's campaign may have an email list doesn't mean that it's necessarily available to the party to distribute to other candidates.
Yes.
It's a separate organization, separate operation.
And I actually have to explain that. Reporters seem to know that about the Democratic and Republican parties, but they seem to think we're still all just one united, completely integrated organization in the Green Party. So I have to explain that to reporters frequently, that I can't really answer your questions about the Stein campaign. You have to talk to them directly. We put up, especially before the nomination takes place, we put up a kind of a necessary firewall between us. We can't appear to be favoring any of the presidential candidates.
And that doesn't mean that Jill's campaign may not be willing to share some of the information with other candidates. She very well may.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have to deal with Jill Stein's campaign organization and not the Green Party to get there.
We need to wrap up right now. Is there any final questions? I'll take one more question before we quit.
Just logistically, it's something late, and there's some people in my party that want to be here but are still caught in traffic. Where will this be available, this recording?
Well, all the information that I've talked about is available online at Media Tips for Green Candidates.
This video that I'm taking will be available on my YouTube page,
Okay.
Nick M. Mellis, Mellis.
if, I think I ran out of syllabuses before you came in, but it is on the syllabus, and if you come up here, I can give you the address for, it's called, again, Media Tips for Green Candidates. It's also useful for state and local parties. But if you have not gotten that yet, if I read this off, will everybody be able to write it down? www.gp.org/organize-kit/ on the Baltimore slasher. Downloads, one word, downloads. / candidate hyphen media hyphen tips .pdf. Do I need to repeat that? Good. And that concludes our session for today. Thank you.